Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our YouTube channel. The topic that we'll be discussing today is loneliness and how it is a major, it's almost like an epidemic in this world today. But before we begin to discuss that, I would just like to thank all of you guys for the love you've shown to us and that we've reached 90 subscribers. And then a few days back, we just tried an experiment where we put a video in Hindi, and that was an unexpected success as well. It got like around 115 likes in a couple of hours, or I think in under 1 or 2 days. So that was also pretty interesting to see that the video Hindi does seem to connect to the audience. So let us know in the comments, guys, that would you want more videos in Hindi, and does that work for you guys? Now, have with that out of the way, I think let's start with today's topic, and that is loneliness. I think in the modern world, we've never been this comfortable in terms of material luxury. We have access to things, and we enjoy a level of material comfort that our ancestors could probably not even imagine. Especially being Indians, our ancestors and in fact, even our grandparents and parents lived a life of poverty and hardship that most Indians in the 21st century can't imagine. However, one aspect in which our lives seem to be poorer and unhappier than that of our parents is the social connections, or more specifically, lack of them. Uh, I have personal experience living in the Western world, and I think what I've noticed there is that people seem disconnected and they do seem lonelier and unhappier than I was expecting. And the thing that struck me the most when I saw white people living in Western countries was these people have so much, yet they're not happier than Indians. And that was the very striking takeaway. And that is why I decided to talk to you guys about loneliness, and I think I would like to begin my discussion by talking to a psychologist. So I think, Sharvari, all of us intuitively understand what loneliness is, right? Most of us have personally experienced it in some way or another. What is your personal and professional opinion about loneliness? And yeah, let's start the discussion there.
Okay, so hi everyone. And I think loneliness, as we have mentioned in the title, is really an epidemic, or it's something on the rise. And this has been seen more, I think, after the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic, because all of us were in our houses, we were kind of disconnected from each other. And that's when people really started to understand that, okay, this is going in a serious direction. So maybe the problem was always there, but I think it took the pandemic for us to realize that this is kind of becoming serious and some action maybe needs to be, or at least some awareness needs to be generated on this. So I personally have also been in a phase where I was lonely in my life. I also spent 1 year studying abroad, that too in a country which was predominantly white. And is why while I was there, I really felt like people were, as you said, Sharang, disconnected from each other, or they kind of don't pay any heed to you, or you don't find more opportunities to connect with other people socially. When I compare it to a country like India, there are many, many chances where you can socially connect with people, maybe just hanging out in your area, or you have a lot of relatives, or many, many occasions like these. So I would say definitely loneliness is really something that needs to be taken seriously. And of course, I think as we proceed in this video, I would like to put my point ahead on how we can avoid it, or how we can maybe try to combat it to the best of our capabilities. But I think, Sharang, you should put your point. Maybe if you have any experience, I would really love to hear about it regarding loneliness.
Sure, but I think before we start with the discussion, I think it's very, very important to technically define loneliness. So it's absolutely crystal clear exactly what we're talking. So, would you like to put forward your psychologist's definition of loneliness, Sharma?
Sure. So loneliness means that your social connections, they kind of lack quality. So you might be in a whole sea of people, but you also might feel lonely. So loneliness is not just you being socially isolated or not around people. Loneliness can also be where you don't find that same level of depth or connection in everyday social situations. This is what I would
Right.
define loneliness like.
Okay, so this brings us to the technical definition of loneliness, which is a phenomenon, a psychological phenomenon, where one is subjected to a profound dearth of valuable social connections, be it at the friendship level, be it at the level of relationships, or be it at the level of familial connection, as well as be it at the level of professional work connection.
Yeah.
Now, before I talk about my personal experience, I would like to draw on my experiences as an evolutionary biologist, right? So the thing is, human beings are a social species. So things like bears and wolves, or animals like bears and wolves, don't really feel loneliness. Why? Because that animal is adapted to living a solitary life. It is a solitary hunter. That is what it does. However, us, along with all the primates, are adapted to living in a community or a group of people. Even if you take a chimpanzee and put it alone in a cage, it's going to be absolutely miserable. Why? Because at the biological, at the neurophysiological, even to some extent at the neurochemical level, it is adapted to live in a social community. What do I mean by that? So we have a part of the brain, I believe, is the hypothalamus, which is essentially keep tracks of your hierarchy, right? And the more, and this, by the way, I'm talking about for human beings. So the more you climb in a hierarchy, the more serotonin is released by your brain, and the more calm you feel. So as human beings, we are optimized to climb a hierarchy, get to the top of that competence slash dominance hierarchy, and this is associated, especially in case of men, with higher mating success. So one of the fundamental drivers of human evolution is our ability to exist and thrive and compete and then excel in hierarchies. So when that is taken away from people, right, when that group is taken away from people, it can have devastating consequences upon you at the level of your neurophysiology. It's that fundamental. Uh, Groups, right, provide a sense of safety and security. If you imagine monkeys in the trees, or if you imagine human beings living alone in the jungle, they're extremely vulnerable to predation. A tiger against a human being is no match. It can just rip you to pieces without breaking a sweat. But they take a group of 10, 20 human beings and working in coordination, they can be a lethal force, right? All of our technology essentially is based on our ability to cooperate. Now, the thing is, throughout all of human history, human beings have always lived in big or small social communities, right? We've always existed in groups. And if you look at all of human history, what would happen? You would be born in a particular context, be it a village, be it a city, wherever. You would grow up in that context. You would find someone from that area, you would marry her, you would have kids with her, and the cycle would go on. Now, what happens is, like, I'll tell you my personal story, right? I was educated in Pune for the first few years of my life. Then I went to Dubai for my schooling. Then I went to India for my undergrad. Then I went to Germany for my postgrad. Now I'm working in a different city in India for my job. So, and every time you have to move from place to place, you're completely disconnected from society. And this would not be the experience of most human beings, like let's say 100, 200 years ago. They would grow up in a social context and they would stay in that context. So I think this is the modern life is leading to this level of disconnectedness from society. I read up a few research articles, and I believe we will post the links of those research articles in the description so that you guys can read them yourself. But loneliness has been associated with negative health outcomes, right? And like people who are lonely literally suffer their whole lives, and they're prone to actually dying early. Their cardiovascular systems are negatively affected. And as a biologist, why do you think that happens? The thing is, when you are subjected to loneliness, when you grow up in a lonely environment, or you lack social connections, you lack deep, meaningful relationships, it leads to a lot of stress. Because as a human being, as a monkey, essentially, you're adapted to living in a social group. And when that's not there, you feel stressed out. That stress leads to the release of cortisol in your endocrine system. Cortisol is associated with heightened arousal. That is, your flight or fight response is activated. Your heart started beating faster. And essentially, what the cortisol is signaling to your body is, "Hey, we are in an emergency. Prepare for war right now." Right? And in the short term, it's extremely good. It's key to your survival. but prolonged state of heightened arousal leads to it's not good for health. It leads to negative health outcomes over a long period of time. So this is the problem that we have. And before we go on to the solutions, Sharvari, I would love to hear your perspective on everything I said and your unique contribution to this discussion.
Sure. Actually, what you said makes a lot of sense. And just like you mentioned that it has a lot of physical health repercussions as well, loneliness, it does have psychological or mental health repercussions as well. So it is seen that when you tend to be lonely for extended periods of time in your life, it leads to increased anxiety and you become more depressed. And it also, in some cases, has led to people having suicidal ideations or suicidal thoughts because they felt they could not, make that connection with other people. That's why they felt unworthy. And that is why it drove them to maybe that direction. So as much serious this as a topic is, and what I think comes here again is the fact that we don't talk about mental health that much. So like we have a lot of people out there being like, you should go for a run, your heart will improve, or you should not drink, your liver will be better. But loneliness is something that you can't tell people like don't be lonely because it's something that happens, and that's why we need a more solution-based approach, which I'm going to be covering now, in how you can maybe combat loneliness or how you can at least better regulate it or deal with it. Because there are some periods in your life where you are lonely. You can't really do anything about it. But if you can take care of yourself, that is important. So I think I'll just go to the part where I start giving solutions. Sharan, or do you want to add something?
No, sure. I think that's a great place for us to begin, where you can tell our audience as a professional counseling psychologist, what are the coping strategies for those. So please share them.
So what happens is when a person is lonely, so this is very automatic. It just happens that you tend to people please your way through life. And that also has a bad, it has a bad effect on your health because you tend to be more stressed when you people please. So even if you're lonely, make sure you have strong boundaries in every relationship that you will hold. After that, make sure that you're not making a plan with a friend on a virtual basis. You're doing it actually in person, because virtual media is fine. If you have a friend that's living somewhere out of the country or in a different city, virtual media is okay. But instead of making a call to a friend or doing that, you can just schedule a coffee with a friend or go to a restaurant, because it really has a very different impact on you compared to like physically meeting someone versus not physically meeting someone. And this was one study that actually, I will also link it down below if anyone's interested in reading, but they did this study after the pandemic, and face-to-face connection really has a better impact. And lastly, if you want to have deep, meaningful relationships, you should be ready to accept this fact. And this helped me a lot in my life, that sometimes you are going to be lonely. But the only person that you have in life ultimately is yourself. So learn how to be your own best friend. Try to find out something more about yourself. Do something for yourself. And later, once you start doing these things, you will find your path and your people in life. I have a great short story for this. There was a girl I knew, and she used to be quite lonely in life. And she always had this passion of learning a musical instrument, an Indian musical instrument. So she went to a class and she did it without any friends or anything. And she actually found a great circle of people whom shared common interests in music. And she actually found her tribe, as the Gen Z people say. So I think these are some tips I would like to give out to the audience. And yeah, that would be all from my side.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for your interesting take, Sharvari. A slight disagreement which I would have with you is the part where you said you can be, I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you can be self-sufficient and self-reliant and you don't need anyone else. Did I understand you correctly or?
No, I didn't mean that. Of course, as you said, man is a social animal, so we definitely need people. But I think this correlates to the first point I made about people pleasing. That you find your own set of people. That's why you need to be so confident in your own abilities that don't people please your way through life just because you're lonely. you will eventually
Okay.
find your tribe, was the point
Right.
I'm trying to make. Yeah.
Okay, no, perfect. Then we are in 100% agreement. Basically, like I agree with everything you said. Now, as far as coping strategies with loneliness are concerned, I would say is that the first thing is if you are suffering in the moment, then the first thing you should do is seek help, seek therapy.
Yeah.
The second thing you can also do is try meditating, because meditation also helped me a lot. And personal strategy that it went for helped for me was I went to a place where I could literally was so dark that even if I opened my eyes, I couldn't see anything. And it was so quiet, I could hear literally nothing. And I went into that place and I meditated, and I had a spiritual experience, and it definitely helped me a lot because it helped me really understand my. And by the way, if you guys are curious exactly how to do mindfulness meditation, it is covered in extensive ways in my explanations on the Bhagavad Gita. So when you do this, your perspective of your own suffering changes. So that is very important. And the second thing is to truly cure loneliness. Is you will never you may be able to alleviate the symptoms of loneliness, but the only way to truly uh, stop feeling lonely is to develop deep and meaningful relationships and connections in your life, right? And the first thing is to have friendships which stretch years and decades. And the way to do that is to slowly, meet new people and not trust them blindly at the first, but to trust them bit by bit by bit. And this is how you grow with people, and set strong boundaries, as Sharwari said, but also learn to sometimes compromise for other people. And in doing so, you will get closer and closer to people, and you will develop deep, meaningful connections, which will truly nourish your soul. And another thing that you should do is develop deep and meaningful relationships with romantic partners. So in this age of just sleeping around and like I don't know, this is not a value judgment, by the way. If this is what you want, if this is what gives you happiness, go for it. Sleep with as many people as you want. However, I personally believe that when you find one person, right, and you invest a lot in them, and it's a long, arduous process because it's going to be very difficult, right? But if you invest your time, uh, like to some extent your money, because your financial futures will be intertwined, your love, your passion, your everything into one person, and you truly grow with that person, then maybe it won't be as exciting as a one night stand, but it will nourish your soul in a way that other things will not. Because as human beings, we are adapted for serial monogamy at a very biological and technical level. Our nervous system is adapted for getting into monogamous, stable relationships with members of the opposite sex, because this is crucial for raising a family. We are built to pair bond. So when you do that, and then you just become psychologically stable in a way that other things won't make you. So as cliche and as corny as this sounds, love is the answer and love is the way. Because I had this realization when I was really on a you can say it was on a trip, but that life will bring you suffering. It will. There's no way around it. Life is full of suffering, and sometimes you will suffer in life. And life will bring you hardship, and life will bring you misery and trials. And in all of this, the only answer is love and it's light. And those are the best answers that life has, along with hope. And I think that's it from my end. Sharwari, would you like to add?
Yeah, I actually thought of one point as you were talking. So one thing that really helped me, as I mentioned before, I was a year abroad in the United Kingdom. And that time I went through a lot of loneliness, as I said, and also seasonal depression because, in the winter time, for those of our audience who live in the West, you guys might know this, but like there tends to be sunset at a very early hour. So like sunset happens at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And as people living in the East, we are not used to such kind of a lifestyle, or we have not grown up that way. That's why I went through a lot of seasonal depression, and that's where the loneliness in my case really surfaced. So I would do one thing, I would always get out of the house. Because sometimes this is another way to feel less lonely, and that is seeing other people on the street or seeing people in general, because those countries or those cultures, they're really not I would say people oriented maybe as much as Indian people are. So for us, it is pretty strange to see people not mixing or mingling with each other. So if you just go out there, even for a walk, you see people on the street, you feel better and you feel a part of something. So that really helped me. So I think going for a walk is something that is harmless, good for your health, and always helps.
Yeah. Yeah, like definitely keep your physical health up, exercise regularly, eat good food, try to sleep on the right time. Yeah, this will help you alleviate the symptoms of loneliness. So I think this is a good place to end this video. Thank you so much for all your love and support, guys. As always, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for your time, Shirley. Bye bye.
Thank you, Sharon. See you, everyone.